and waiting for her to return probably in about a couple weeks to a month. One full-time vacancy in dispatch. We're actively hiring for that now. That's been posted to Police App. We do have some applications in, and by next month we should have that process at least closed and moving on to next steps. And we have 2 patrol vacancies, one created by the retirement of Chief Custer and the other by the addition of the SRO, and both that job now is currently posted on Police App. And again, closing in the next couple weeks and be moving on that. That's a certified process looking for a lateral transfer, and we're considering doing an entry level for the second. But again, those are all actively going on as we speak. Tonight, not sure how much you're aware of it, but the town received a couple grants. The one was a spoke grant that kind of started last year, and the state had a little slow roll on getting the approval for the funds, but we finally got that. And what that is it's a grant to allow for us to go out and search for violent criminals, stolen vehicles, people doing the thefts that we try to fight against. And that funding's used specifically to put out a team of folks for the next couple months out 1-2 days a week to go out and combat these types of crimes. And what's really unique about what they're doing tonight as we speak is they're leveraging the new RECORE camera system that's been, down the line I'd like to really talk to you about the success of that camera system. It's still in its infancy, but the results we're seeing from it have been amazing. We are getting 1 to 2 stolen car hits a day on average of cars coming in and out of town. Not cars being stolen, but cars that are being flagged by the camera system, amongst other types of warnings and highlights that we have in the system built to let us know when a certain car comes into town for maybe it's a wanted person or missing person. Had some success stories there. But tonight, the town's investment is being put into full force tonight with 6 officers, a supervisor, and an administrative officer reading those cameras live and in real time and looking to see if we can't stop, and either stop these folks from coming into town or make an arrest. And at the very least, and what's been happening more so since the cameras, is we will light them up with our lights after we get these alerts and they take off. And we cannot chase them per the statute, but the good news is that I think the message is getting around. We have seen a dramatic reduction in catalytic converter thefts. If you look at your charts, I think that can be attributed to, and again, it's hard to really quantify it, but it's something interesting happening with the number of motor vehicle, especially the motor vehicle break-ins, thefts from motor vehicles, it's kind of trending downward. And I think that might be that these folks coming in trying to do no good, and as we light them up and they jump back on the highway and take off, might be getting the message. So maybe down the line I can pull some stats and do a little study to give you more about that, but know that the town's investment is fully working fantastically for us, and as a town, I think the results will end up showing some really good things down the line. But tonight, it's in full effect, and I will try to get you some results of tonight's operation, the next couple, before we come back for the next meeting. And then also on the opioid grant, I met with Mona a few weeks ago. The town was awarded, I don't remember how much the town got, but collaboratively between the Police Department and Human Services, we are looking to do some things to help our opioid response. Most recently, with Mona's approval and the manager's approval, we have purchased extra nasal Narcan spray for every patrol vehicle. Now, prior to this, they would only have their Narcan in their med kits, and we have about 6 full med kits that go out on the line and then change over to the next shift coming on. Those kits are very expensive between an AED and other materials we're required to have. So we basically trade them between shifts, and we have each car equipped that way. But to kind of supplement that, we're going to put a Narcan and the bag valve masks into each car being purchased by this grant, which is really fantastic for our folks coming into town or even being out of town when they maybe don't have their full kit, their full AED, maybe traveling to training, can respond to or help in an opioid situations. I think that's a pretty good investment that we're making here to try to help out that crisis. And beyond that, I had couple community events. I know some of you, if not all of you, were at the Fall Fest. Very well attended, probably our best one ever as far as the attendance from the community. That was back in August. Sergeant Morgan, Acting Lieutenant Morgan, did a fantastic job coordinating with a vendor to get us a very inexpensive cooler truck to help out with keeping food and beverages cold. And the feedback we've gotten from the community has been very, very successful. And lastly, I may have mentioned that you might have seen the cadets out at that Fall Fest, but our cadet program is now coming back. We currently have 4, I think it's 4, it might be 6, but pardon me for not knowing the number. But Sergeant Foss-Rugen and one of our new officers, Officer Garcia, who led one of the cadet programs in Hartford when she was there, are really driving the ship on that and trying to build membership. And I think that's going to be something really nice to see happening again, bringing in some of these young folks, beneath the age of 16 to kind of start learning the trade and being part of our team.
Thank you. Councilor O'Sullivan.
Yes, thank you. So, Chief, on that issue about the legal and practical constraints on pursuing vehicles that have been identified, stolen or whatever, and I'm sure it's extremely frustrating when someone's been identified and you're not able to pursue them for various reasons. The technology and the infrastructure probably aren't there quite yet, but is it foreseeable that there may be a point where drone technology will come to the point where, okay, you can't chase them on land, but you can surveil these people over an extended distance by drone and perhaps lock them down once they park the car?
The answer is yes and no. It's based on geography. The drones are limited to being only flown within sight of the operator. So you can't just fire a drone across town chasing if we did it in a real extreme circumstance, we're talking like, the ones you see on the movies, we probably would do that and violate every FAA rule and get in trouble. But if it meant good results, it is what it is. Yep. But in general terms, it has to be within sight of the operator. So as long as there's a visual, yes. And if someone's in one of our neighborhoods performing a crime or trying to steal their cars and we can set up that drone, we do have the asset of the fire department on call at all times with their drone, and we also have a quick response team. One of our officers who's on our drone team that we collaborate with the fire department with if he's working, can get the drone up in minutes. And we've done that before with missing folks and other type of calls. But as far as the pursuits go, there is other technology out there. It's a little bit, there's devices you can put on the front of cruisers where you shoot a sticky device at the back of a car. Weathersfield has them. I've not heard a lot of success stories on that because you still have to get within 6 to 10 feet. And once those cars start to move, the state statute that restricts our ability to pursue is really intended to keep people safe. And I don't necessarily disagree with it in all terms. But for a simple motor vehicle violation, we have to shut it down. We cannot pursue. That is pretty clear. We have some latitude when it's a different type of crime or maybe a felony. But really, the risk of that pursuit has to outweigh, the risk of it is high. And to continue a pursuit, we have to make sure that the risk of doing so outweighs the risk that we're putting the public at. And that's a very, very risky threshold today. And, not to say there's not pursuits, but in general terms, for motor vehicle violations or larcenies, and even a stolen car, really by statute, they're defined as property crimes. So, to answer your question, I know it went a little long. The drone is available for us, and I would say in a case where we're up in Whitewood, if we use that neighborhood as an example, we know they're in the area and can deploy that as well as our own assets, that's a great use for it. But as far as chasing it down to the highway from Whitewood, we would not be allowed to do that by FAA regulation.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Prakash.
Yeah, Chief, it would be great to see, as in the next few months, whatever, to get a brief on like how it is working, the program, like you mentioned. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I fully intend to. I just want to give it a few more months. It's really just
yes, of course,
2 or 3. But what I'm seeing is very promising. I get the alerts on my phone 24 hours a day when we have the certain stolen cars alert, missing people, warrants, arrest warrants.
Right.
I see the alerts too, so I know what's coming in. And when a stolen car comes into town, we're being deployed, and the officers get into the area. And if I could give you a number, it's more than a dozen cars have been chased out of town here in the last couple of months, where we light them up, attempt a motor vehicle stop, and off they go off to the highway and somewhere else, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's acting like a deterrent,
We track those cases too. So when cars don't stop for us, we do have a stat for that in our CAD system that we were able to go back and take a look and see how many times it's happening. But I can, on a quick guess, it's more than a dozen.
Yeah, and you share that information, obviously, once they leave the town, obviously, it's there in some database somewhere, which
Sure.
I'm sure like Weathersfield can track or.
I think the criminals are probably sharing it too, because they must be wondering why they're getting off the highway, and we're finding them faster than they can find trouble. So
Right.
It's been good.
Right, that makes sense. One question I have for you, outside of the report, is about speeding around town. Like you hear a lot of concerns about like people speeding, like on New Britain Avenue and other places. Is there something we can do proactively, or what would you suggest from from an approach perspective?
So if we don't receive a complaint on it, we don't really know that we're having a problem in a neighborhood. So the first thing I'd encourage anybody listening or anybody that calls your office or emails you is to give the police department a call. Certainly, they can email me directly. We have a supervisor in charge of the traffic unit. We have other resources like the traffic trailer. But what we do on our own end is we're really looking at accident data on a monthly basis. If we see a trend or pattern in an area, we will target that. But fortunately for a majority of our accidents, percentage based, are rear enders, somebody on the phone, and it's called 14-240, following too closely. We don't have a lot of bad ones, and that's just good. But if there's a problem in a neighborhood, please direct them to me, to my email, and I will get it to the right supervisor and make sure we're tackling it for you.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful. I think just having a point of contact. If it's somebody else, let me know. I'm happy to.
My email's
I don't want to bother you directly.
My email's the first thing you see on the website. I get a lot of emails anyway, so if they bring it to me, it's a very quick forward and talking to the division commander who's in charge of that unit, and we'll take care of it.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Pursuant to that line of discussion is, it's clear, like infractions issued, warnings issued, and tickets issued. You're holding pretty steady. I mean, tickets issued actually are up quite a bit in August, but on your chart. But otherwise, 171. I mean, that was kind of the deterrent as you were issuing. You weren't really ticketing everybody. You were making stops and to slow people down and.
Yeah.
And so the category where we were seeing the effort to combat speeding was to try to, I guess, give warnings and infractions and then some tickets.
It's a blend, we try to give this board and the community what they want. And I don't know that writing 100,000 tickets is really the answer. It's really stopping the cars and being visible and having that nice blend of both enforcement and presence. I know of other departments and other chiefs that are just driving traffic enforcement, and I don't know that solves the problem necessarily. If you have a hot spot with speed or accidents, then I'm all in on that. But as far as going out and stopping cars and being visible in those neighborhoods, so the person calling you sees us there and knowing that we're making the efforts, that's really more important to me than the actual result of the enforcement. But although I do encourage the infraction when it's appropriate. But not everyone, how many in the room or listening has been pulled over before and gets the warning and probably slows down for a few months until you get a little confident again. But we try to put a nice blend together and treat our community right.
Sure. And then you mentioned the Fall Fest, but I think you meant National Night Out. We have a Fall Fest.
Oh, I'm sorry.
coming up. Yeah.
I'm
So
looking
our
at the
Fall
notes for
Fest
the-
is coming up.
Yeah,
for the
I
town,
apologize.
but it's National Night Out, right?
Yeah, so thank you for correcting me. So National Night Out is a program that is really law enforcement based, where we put on the event, coordinate with vendors, and Sergeant Morgan really spearheads that and has for the last 3 years, and this year really was a home run. So thank you I apologize for that.
Yeah, one more thing, if I may add, I forgot to was I just want to give a shout out to the cadet program, which I follow quite closely, and I talked to Sergeant Fosrugan, and I think it's a great program for the community. I think I will encourage more parents to look at that, and not just from a perspective of joining the police force, which is great if they do eventually, but I think just to know the kind of work you do and the kind of effort you put in this community, not just for policing per se, but as members of the community, and if I may say, community policing, right? Not community work, what you just said about ticketing, right? I think the idea here is to be part of the community rather than policing the community, if you will, if that makes sense, right? So I think I just wanted to kind of give it a shout out, the program itself, because I think the way I see it as a parent is also a way for teenagers to know, and the parents of those teenagers to know what you do in the community. And it's just not obviously a lot of it is crime prevention and crime mitigation, but it's also a big part of what you do here.
It builds a really good relationship with us and those
Right.
members, but they're instilling core values and leadership and respect. And when they get to come out and help us in an event by crossing people at a crosswalk, or even if it's handing out water, they're contributing back to the community through this program, and it's an excellent thing for people to join.
Right. So I will highly encourage, if you're watching, like anybody who watches this meeting, to actually look at that program. So
Thank you.
thank you.
So in wrapping up, I don't know if did you need a minute to reference anything about your fallen officer ceremony that was over the last couple of days?
Oh,
Or
thank you.
a moment of silence, maybe?
If you'd care to, sure. I think that would be, the family is one of our neighbors down the street in Weathersfield, and if you want to call for the moment of silence, I'd be happy to join you.
And the officer's name?
Bobby Garton.
Bobby
Garton.
And how many years on the force?
I think he had 8 years on, if I recall correctly. He was a younger member of the department. I mean, just a tragic accident for that department. We felt it here. We have 6 officers that came over from Hartford who knew Bobby or worked alongside directly with him. You know, so, and many of them were in the attendance of the wake and the funeral, which we went out on Saturday, as well as Friday night at the Yard Goat. So it was well attended by our department. I was happy to see that. And, you know, it's a moment for us to reflect, but, you know, it's not just Hartford. It hits home, and especially here with some of the great folks we've you know, inherited or stolen from Hartford PD and brought them over to our team.
Sure.
So I thank you for recognizing that.
So quick moment of silence. Thank you very much, and we appreciate that. Thank you, Chief. Old business, new business, all right. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.